Welcome to Your Need to Know. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and today we are talking with the Class Act players, Fairfax County's own Class Act players. Joining me are Alex Bulova and Alex Poirier. Thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
So I've known you for a long time, Alex Bulova, and came to see your high school productions. And tell me a little bit about what happened in 2015 that, took your theatrical ambitions from the school and academic setting into something that really has taken off.
Yeah. So in the, early winter of 2015, me and many of my high school friends were made aware of the Capitol Fringe Festival in DC, where local artists can come in and they put on a show of their own choosing in Washington, DC over the month of July. And we thought, well, that'd be cool to be a part of. And so just kind of, on our own, we put together a show called Dust to Dust. We gave ourselves a name, the Class Act Players, because we had to be a company to go to Fringe. And just as a bunch of 18-year-olds, we put on just a little professional production in Washington, D.C. at Gallaudet University. And we just had such a wonderful time, not only the creative process of putting together a show, a full-fledged musical, but also getting to know the DC arts community. Mm-hmm. That was just a really eye-opening experience, because Washington, D.C., you think of it as a politics town, but it has a really great, thriving arts community. So after that, we knew we wanted to go back and do more shows with Fringe. And so we happened to have a few more show ideas, and we've been putting on shows both at Fringe and in Fairfax ever since.
You absolutely have, and I can say that I think I've seen most of them. Now, Alex, you were not with the original group. What pulled you into the Class Act Players?
No, I wasn't. I was at William and Mary with some of the original founding members, including Alex Bulova and Sarah Mark Steiner. And after I was in a Shakespeare show with Sarah, she approached me about coming on board for the Fringe show because they were looking to do an ensemble in the show Supernova, which is a satirical musical.
Oh, it's brilliant.
Brilliant political musical. And so I came on board. I'm actually from Loudoun County.
That's okay, but they let you in.
But they let me in.
Very open organization.
And so I would come out here to work on the rehearsals, and eventually I came to know most of the members of the team, and as we went on, got more and more involved with all the productions until eventually I became a part of the executive board as the business manager.
Very nice. And you guys really do have a fleshed out leadership team.
Yes.
And we were talking before the show about the fact that everybody does everything. Like really, there's not really a hierarchy there. So, how did you evolve what roles people would play as you really established yourself as an ongoing company?
Yeah, I think it was funny because for our first two shows, I would say we were operating without like a set executive board. We had our production team from show to show, somebody's directing, somebody's doing costumes, blah, blah, blah. But as time went on, we found our own personal strengths. So, for example, I am currently the outreach manager, and that's because during the Fairfax musical, I was the one responsible for reaching out to the venues, such as the James Lee Center in Annandale, the Workhouse Art Center in Lorton, and through that, I just became, the go-to guy for, call up Joey, make sure we can reserve the space, or see what the, venue and the show is going to be like. And so we naturally fell into these positions where we felt most comfortable, but that doesn't mean that we've stayed in that. That collaborative spirit has stayed alive. For example, I do a lot of the marketing as well. I'm a marketing co-chair with Max Snyder, but we just, we have our specialties, but whenever we have one of our executive meetings, everyone chimes in. Nobody...
Which sometimes has its challenges. We were talking about your postcard. Your postcard's, getting closer to being ready for printing, but everybody has an opinion.
Yep. But, I think they say it takes a village. I think having so many people so passionate about our productions, it may lead to, a little disagreements here or there, but ultimately it produces wonderful products for our shows.
Absolutely. And so, the fact that you are from you were from Loudoun, Alex, and the fact that they let you in, talk a little bit about the fact that you have created in-house productions, written the music, the libretto, the book, the script by people within the troupe, but now you're kind of broadening to look outside your organization?
Yes, as we've continued, because first off, it was all folks from Robinson High, and then once we got to Supernova, there was sort of a broadening with people that we had met at college and elsewhere, and sort of bringing in other talented individuals that we knew we wanted to work with. And then from there, and once we got into more of an executive board, we decided that not only did we want to look at the creative strengths of our internal team, but we wanted to look at some of the talented playwrights we knew were in the area. But we were talking earlier that it's very difficult to find places to do original work sort of in this area. There are a lot of different community theaters that do particular productions that cost royalties and rights, but there aren't a lot of places where as young budding playwrights and directors, you can make your mark and do original work. And so that's one of the most important things in our company's mission, is to contribute toward young artists and creating original work. And so we actually have created a submission process, which we have just finished the second year of doing so, in which we reach out to local playwrights. We blast the internet and say, we are looking for your work. And then all of us read all the submissions that we receive. We go have meetings and we argue about what we want to produce and why it fits with our motto and mission and values as the class act players, and what we decide to make our season.
You know, that brings to mind just the fact that the Tony Award winner this year was Hadestown.
Yes.
Very original, a woman-driven production in every way. And also what the Constitution means to me, this one-woman show. And that's kind of like, Broadway doesn't take, I don't think, a whole lot of risks, but I think we're seeing sort of the dawn of a new era of what is a play.
Yeah.
What is a play? And so Hadestown taking the Tony Award really surprised me. And again, what the Constitution means to me, an amazing one-woman show, and I'm thinking, wow. So, you know, as you go forward, I know that one of the shows that you're currently doing this summer is kind of a genre-defying production, which I didn't realize until I was talking to you about it. Tell me a little bit about Airmail par Avion.
Yeah, so Airmail par Avion is, I guess at this point, our fourth original musical and our third one that we're taking to the Capitol Fringe Festival. It's been in the works for years. The score, at least, is by our good friend Chris Mayhew, whom I went to high school with. And it is a pretty classic story of lost love. A young college student goes to Belgium and falls in love with an expat, and they end up having a small relationship at a jazz festival, but they're kind of forced apart by circumstances. But what really sets the show apart is that it is so heavily based in improvising. So every scene of the show is improvised each night. You know, it has the same setup. You know, this character needs to meet that character. They agree to get lunch, but the dialogue is different each night. The dynamics are different each night. Even the music is very rooted in jazz. We have portions where we just jam out, and so we're moving away from what we've grown comfortable with, which is the book musical, and we're just taking a risk. And we're very thankful that we have the resources in our own company and with Capitol Fringe to do so, because it's an exciting time for theater, and I think we're really putting on something special this summer.
So people still have a chance to see Par Avion?
Yep.
Yes, that is going to be the 27th and 28th, so this weekend at 2:45 and 2 p.m. respectively.
Yep.
And that'll be at the Riverside Baptist Church on the waterfront in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, which I didn't even realize that was a venue. But the thing about Capitol Fringe Festival is they use lots of different venues.
Yes.
I've seen you at Gallaudet, I know.
Yep.
And they use churches and all kinds of venues. And I think that's great because it keeps the cost low. Obviously, the tickets are for anybody who hasn't been to the Capitol Fringe Festival, it's wonderful live arts. The tickets are very inexpensive. I know that, part two of pulling your group together is funding, right? Because so part of it is you're seeking sponsors. You do have costs to offset in mounting a production. So without charging Broadway ticket prices, you have to have investors.
Yeah, and we're very thankful for all of our donors and sponsors, community theater is difficult to put on because, even shows they don't have to pay royalties for are expensive.
Yep.
The one act that I'm currently directing and wrote, we have to have a Jackson Pollock painting, and it costs money to have a canvas, and it's not a real Jackson Pollock painting. We're making
Yeah,
it.
that's a
But
good
you
thing.
have to put together paintings. You have to get costumes, and none of that is possible without the support of our sponsors and donors. And it really, I think it creates a great relationship because it helps us become more ingrained in our community. The more that we're reaching out to other leaders in Fairfax and beyond, the more people feel a personal connection with the theater that's happening. And that's why we put on shows, is to connect with our community and having our donors be so involved in just like the foundation of these productions.
It's an investment. It's like you
It
would invest
is.
in anything else, but you get to see the fruits of your investment in a little more timely fashion than other kinds of stock investments, right?
Exactly.
So, tell me just a little bit. I want to talk about the complete history of Fairfax County. Was that a commission?
It was, yes. So it was summer of 2017, and it was the 275th anniversary of the county's founding. And because we had put on a musical about Northern Virginia,
Supernova.
Yep, Supernova. Not the most pro Northern Virginia show, but it was for a specific audience, and they trusted us to do another show for Fairfax County. And so I essentially had a year to write it. And a lot of it was, written out script in advance, a lot of the songs. But once we got into the rehearsal room, and we talked about before, there was a lot of collaboration. One of the big songs from the show was actually sung by Alex, and it was about events that had happened in the Lorton prison while it was still a prison in the early 1900s. If you actually want to talk about that.
Yeah, and that was really cool because Bulova and I have been working together on multiple levels for years now, and it was really interesting to sort of intellectually collaborate on a piece that means so much, because this particular moment was in the suffragist movement of America. So we were looking specifically at the story of Lucy Burns, who was one of the leading suffragists in the DC area at the time. And so what ended up happening is she and a bunch of her compatriots were arrested, several arrests, but this was sort of the penultimate arrest, thrown in the Lorton workhouse, and they were savagely beaten. And these were women that were upper middle class, wives of important people, and it sent shockwaves throughout the community because they said, how dare you treat these women in such a way, even though the women getting a vote was not a popular opinion at the time, 100 years ago.
It was not. But what was unique is then the Night of Terror is really the one that they talk about with the Wharton workhouse, was specific to not just the history of Fairfax County, but to the place where you were doing the production.
Exactly.
Yes.
So
we performed in the location where it happened.
So when we come back from our break, we're going to be talking further with Alex and Alex of the Class Act Players. So please join us after the break.
You can achieve a lot using your imagination. I mean, I don't like to brag, but... Wait, who's that? And why is she all over these achievement awards? But with STEM, the sky's the limit. Shaboom! Use STEM to envision... Okay, I'm seeing it. Yeah. Invent...
Got any ideas?
I've got a few, actually. And create a better world.
Told you she's super smart.
If she can STEM, so can you. Find out more at She Can STEM.
Every year, 40% of all food in the U.S. never gets eaten.
40%. That's almost half the food we produce.
Food waste is a serious problem. It impacts all of us.
And it's expensive. Your family is throwing $1,500 a year in the trash.
We're working hard to put food waste on the chopping block.
And you can do the same at home.
Learn how to cook it, store it, and share it.
Just don't waste it.
Go to SaveTheFood.com.
Welcome back to Your Need to Know. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and today we are talking with two of the members of the Class Act Players, Alex Poirier and Alex Bulova. Thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we were talking when we went to break about the history of Fairfax County, the fact that you incorporated something, a very historical, important moment in the women's suffrage movement that took place at the Lorton Workhouse, which is now an arts center. That was a fantastic musical. Are your productions available for other people to perform them? Like,
Oh man. So we'll be honest that we have not been approached, but if we want to say on the air right now, if anybody is interested, I think we are certainly interested in sharing some of our work with other members of the community. We make at least 2 of our productions are such Fairfax-oriented shows.
that's what I'm saying. But you think about just at high school, let's say high school or middle school productions. First of all, it's specific to Fairfax County. It's really well done. The music and everything is well done. It does not have huge production costs as far as sets, and so it seems to me that's kind of like if you wanted to introduce the live arts in an academic setting, given how many schools are in Fairfax County, rather than doing some of the other choices that you have, why not do an original musical that was created for Fairfax County? I just wondered if, like, do you have the book and the libretto? If somebody said, oh, Fairfax High School wants to do this, like, well, how would you do that?
Well, I'd say that we have all the documentation ready to go. So theoretically, it's possible. And we'd discuss it as a team and decide whether or not we wanted to bring this out into the community. I'd say, as a business manager, just
well, it's
tell
like
me
the
how.
natural progression, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people didn't get to see the original production, right? So they don't even know what we're talking about. It's like, wow, you're talking about something I never got to see it, and because there isn't a plan or it's not scheduled to be performed anywhere else. This is kind of where I think you should take advantage of people who want to do live arts where they are. Supernova is another one. And that was kind of an insider baseball sort of thing because it was political,
Yes.
and lots of political people came, and they recognized what you were talking about, right? Because we were all plugged in. But I think one of the funniest parts to me in sitting through there, the nemesis was from Galax, Virginia.
Yep.
Yeah, that's where I was born.
Oh, really?
Right?
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm so
right?
sorry.
No, it's totally fine. I'm like, Galax? Why did he pick Galax? Because I'm like, that's where I was born, and we're okay. Everybody's all right.
Well, I would like to say for the public record that Supernova ends up being a very positive
It
show
does.
about
It
a very
absolutely
deep
does.
love for our Commonwealth.
It does. It is, but I just thought it was so funny because when you are from the Commonwealth of Virginia, especially Northern Virginia, these shows resonate. It resonates with you, but again, not everybody got to see it. It was part of the Capitol Fringe Festival, so viewers are going, well, this sounds very interesting, but I didn't see the show.
Well, the good thing is that Supernova and the Complete History of Fairfax are both available online on YouTube in their original productions. So if people are interested, I'm sure we can flash up the links towards the end of the production.
Yeah.
But I certainly agree that I would love to see these shows come back to life. I mean, Supernova premiered in 2016. I'd say on the cusp of this kind of new political era that we're in, and it was a little prescient. I think it was definitely of the time, and I love to see how it plays nowadays. I mean, clean up the language a bit for the high schoolers going on.
Yes, true.
But I do think, I think actually quite a lot about how Supernova would look today, because I think it might be even more relevant, its themes of polarization, but then also what kind of unites us as fellow Virginians and Americans.
I happen to agree with you. So for all the reasons that you created these productions, there's beyond putting together something that is wonderfully musically, a great plot, the characters are wonderful. It also is very important to specifically where we are. And so I'm all about, if it's on YouTube, I'm going to encourage everybody to go find it on YouTube and look, and to also encourage, whether it's a community theater production or it's a high school production, that this is something that people should take a look at, because more people would get to see the show. So going forward, because you've done this kind of new genre-bending production with so much improv in it, and we were talking a little bit before we started the show about the fact that I don't know of any organization in this area that really offers improv. Even though you think about Second City and some of the famous improv troupes where so many people have gone on to do amazing things. A lot of the SNL cast members ended up going through improv troupes. Do you see yourself expanding that in any way?
Right now, it's not within our mission statement. However, we are constantly keeping that under review. So who knows where we'll end up in a year.
Yeah.
But if people, so you do have a submission process. People can submit their works. Now that you have made a foray into a play that is improv, this is kind of an opportunity for people to consider that as being something that could be done,
Yeah.
rather than just like, I wrote a play and here's the script, and look at it.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think there's anything less satisfying than writing a script and then putting it in a drawer. Theater is meant to be seen, and it's hard to put on theater sometimes. It requires actors, directors. You need a space, and that's why I'm so thankful for the Class Act Players, because we do have a dedicated team of artists who are willing to put in the time and effort to make these original works come to life. And sometimes you just don't know what your show's going to look like until you see it on stage. And I can tell you, I've gotten to have 2 shows that I've worked on, stage Foley, and coming up, I guess in just a few days, I'll have a new one-act play that'll be staged at the Workhouse as part of our one-act festival.
Right.
But there is nothing like the feeling of seeing something that existed in your mind just come alive. And I hope that we can offer that for more individuals in our community.
And it is a process. Thinking about how Lin-Manuel Miranda developed Hamilton, which is just, that was such an original concept. But like, he worked on it for years, number one, and he did it off Broadway, number two. And so even when it was off Broadway, they made changes to it. We saw Dear Evan Hansen at the Arena Stage. In fact, they worked on it here, and it was too long. And so we saw it in preview, and they were still trying to cut some of the numbers, get the time down. So I haven't seen it on Broadway to see how the Broadway production differed from what they were working on at Arena Stage. But people need to understand there's potential for shows to start in a very small way and end up being something different by the time that they're a full-blown production. But it seems to me that's the differentiating thing about what you're offering over, let's say, community theaters or other kinds of companies that do more standard, well-known fare.
Right. Yeah. No, I think it's enlightening for an audience to see that shows are works in progress. Even by the time something gets to Broadway, it can still change. I'd say we were both in the Addams Family musical.
Yes.
That went to Broadway, but then the version that you do in high schools or colleges is a different script.
Yeah.
But most people just believe that these shows just kind of emerge out of nowhere. But I think we offer a really exciting opportunity just to see things grow and develop. And I think that'll be made even more obvious with our production at Airmail Par Avion. Just, literally being reminded that these shows are constantly shifting.
So tell me a little bit about the other one, I Hate Modern Art.
Yes.
We already talked about that one. That's the one who's going to be in August at the
Yes.
Workhouse Art Center. So
Yes, so that is going to be 2 one-acts. The first one is I Hate Art by the playwright Sarah Marksteiner, and the second is Modern Art by the playwright Alex Bulova.
ta-da.
I am a co-director of I Hate Art with Sarah, and it is really an investigation between 2 different timelines, because it's between modern-day Boston and Boston during the time of Isabel Stewart Gardner, which
the
is
museum.
Yes, exactly. It's set mostly in the museum.
Wow.
Which I can get more into the museum later, but basically it's parallel storylines that examine the works of women, art, and kind of the continued objectification of the female form.
Wow. Now I'm really excited to see that
Yes.
production.
And then Modern Art is about a performance artist who stumbles upon / forces the opportunity to work with a Jackson Pollock painting and decides that she wants to destroy it as her performance. And it's a show that examines the question of, can you destroy art? Is destruction unto itself art? And just generally, what is art? And so I think our shows are very different stylistically, content-wise, but I think just that collective theme of what is art and who gets to make it is such an interesting question, and something that creates this really strong evening of theater that I think is going to leave a lot of audience members walking away just with a lot of questions, and I think a new appreciation for some art they take for granted.
Well, it's also totally in alignment with with class act players. Like,
It
what is
is.
art and who gets to make it, right? I mean, I just think it's a natural outgrowth of what you believe, which is, it should be more democratic than it actually is. A lot of art is based on access and resources and people who declare that something is either good or not good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is really quite fascinating. So after these summer productions are done, what does your schedule look like beyond August?
We have some submissions in our pile, but we have not made any concrete plans. We're going to finish off the summer season, and then we'll reevaluate from there. Most of the company members are no longer at university.
Which is why I wondered if this would be more than just a summer thing now.
And so this is the first time where we actually have the opportunity to maybe continue working on class act projects in the future through the fall, winter, spring. But as we are all moving forward into our own jobs, there are some people that are moving away, there are people that are working here or in DC, so it's really just figuring out who feels passionate about a project and how would we all be able to help in order to put it on.
Right, but the key thing is that even as some of our original members move away, we all still share that passion for producing original theater, which is why I'm glad that last summer we had the opportunity to do Good Dogs by Mason student Morgan Smalley. And we plan to keep doing that, even if we have to be, across the country. If we can be enabling theater in Fairfax, that's why we're here.
We Skype a lot.
A lot.
But this is proof of concept. You made it go. You produced things, people came to see them, they were artistic successes, right? And so it's proof of concept. And if you've got members that go and say, I did a thing and I think we can do it here, to me it seems like that's a real win-win.
Yeah.
For everybody who was in the original team, everybody who's on the team now. And going forward, I just think, what you're doing is just amazing. And it makes it accessible. I went to high school in Roanoke. There's a lot of arts in Roanoke, but the one thing I would say about it is that the live arts in Roanoke, and there's an opera company, a symphony, a ballet, lots of community theater, is that it was accessible. People could afford to go and see live theater out in the middle of kind of a very rural part of the Commonwealth of Virginia. And I would suggest that is what you're doing here. You're making the arts accessible. Thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you.
I really appreciate
Thank you, Catherine.
And this is what you need to know.